Chile, Argentina, France, Italy, Spain, and all wines selected for what I like, which is clean products, natural fermentation, small family vineyards that have been around over 200 years, wines that are made the way they have been making them for almost 200 years, like very, very traditional winemaking practices. And some of these grapes are grown between 6,000 and 9,000 feet. So they are extremist altitude wines. I said it before, I'll say it again. If you want to be an extremist and you do not want to go to federal prison, this is a great way to dip your toes into extremism. The wines are delicious. They're great for presents. Christmas is coming up. Get an Allison Wine Club. You will get 6 bottles of these wines every 3 months. And then you'll always have a present. You can bring one to grandma. You unfriended her last week. You like what Dr. Drew said. You think, oh, he changed my mind on this issue. I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to go bring her a bottle of wine. And you know what, grandma, at her age, she doesn't need that much. So these are not cheap wines, but at grandma's rate, you only have to get her 1 bottle. All right, Dr. Drew Pinsky is here. We're going to start off the show by talking about all the chatter around Biden potentially pardoning Fauci. And I guess the first question I have is, what do you think they're thinking they need to pardon him for, Dr. Drew? Because they don't really say that.
That is the question, right? Why should this man of distinction and the arbiter of truth be concerned about any liability anywhere? Now, we do live in a world, and that they know well, where people can take legal actions at someone. They can use the law in an aggressive fashion just to go after somebody and ruin their lives. And they know that, and they've done that, and they don't want to see that happen to them. But neither do I. I don't want to see anybody using lawfare anymore. I want to see that to be over with. But it does raise an interesting question, like what happened there? What is he up to?
Right. When I was reading this article, and this is from Politico, obviously they have their own bias when it comes to these kinds of reporting.
What? Biased reporting? Are you kidding me, Allison?
Well, they would just call it
reporters,
truth.
especially.
I know. They would just call it truth. And I forgot to tell you, I do have a 4-year-old who every once in a while takes over the show. And my babysitter is 88. And apparently he has, for some reason, forgotten about her. So anyway, I will return her.
But need a nap.
Yeah, well, the 2-year-old is sleeping, but the 4-year-old, she's the show woman of the house, so she doesn't like it when a show.
Full screen. Let's see the picture.
You want to say hi?
Hi.
Okay. All right. So the thing that I guess is confusing here. They're talking about who would potentially be on this list. Okay, Adam Schiff, Liz Cheney, and then Anthony Fauci. And they say they're nervous to do it because they don't want it to feed into, any of our concerns that maybe they did do something wrong. But which is exactly what it is doing. But I'm just curious, you have been in addiction for a long time and have a deep background in psychology. What's the psychology behind all of this? Is this total projection on their part?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the one thing that everybody in the progressive movement has shown themselves. You need only scratch the surface on Matthias Desmet's theory and Aaron Kheriaty. These guys are school professionals that look at the history of mass formation and how humans go into these delusional trends. And yes, they've been in a delusional stupor for quite a while. And what's behind that is narcissism. And one of the prime sort of most common sorts of strategies of the narcissist is projection and projective identification if they're more borderline. And so, I remember I heard a psychoanalyst once say absolutely clearly, when you hear a narcissist say you are, you must immediately convert that into your head as I am. And this is a prime example.
Okay.
Of that, right? But I want to go further. What the reason they resist, I know nothing about the law. I should ask my son about this, but my understanding is the reason they're even thinking twice about these pardons is that there's no Fifth Amendment privilege if there's no liability. In other words, you can bring them into court and insist that they answer questions, and you can't take the Fifth because you can't incriminate yourself because you've been pardoned. So I think this is why they're waiting. And won't that be interesting if they haul them in and they can't take the Fifth, so to speak?
Okay. And before I show this video about whether really Fauci was actually the the fall person, the front man for Deborah Burks, and if she
Yeah.
was really the one pulling the strings, which our friends over at Good Kid Productions, they put together a really interesting documentary about it all. I'll show a second of it. But why do you think, let's just say that this is going on? I honestly don't know, because whenever the mainstream media releases something, they're all kind of trending together, and it seems like information that you'd have to be either very privileged to get, or specifically it's been leaked for a particular reason. That makes me wonder, okay, why do they want us talking about this right now? So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this organically arose? It just all of a sudden the news media got word that Fauci and these other people are going to be pardoned, or is there some kind of, media, I don't know. I hate using the word psyop. I don't use psyop all the time because I feel like
Allison,
I overuse it.
Here's what's happened to me. Yeah, I don't believe anything, anytime, anywhere in the media or from the government. And it got just emblazoned in my skull 2 days ago when Mayorkas on CNN went, "What drones? There are no drones. I know these people are crazy. I don't know what they're talking about." That asshole needs to be taken to task. Now, these poor people are saying, "Hey, I just want to know what's flying over my house." And that idiot says, "Oh, there's nothing to see here. I know what you're talking about. They're delusional." This man, this is not a good thing. This is really seriously sinister stuff. Now, I understand if there maybe is some military operation they don't want us to know anything about, then say it. I mean, say that we're doing something we can't tell you. That's it. Fine, we'll shut up. But to say there's nothing there is an insult to everybody in New Jersey. But let me tell you about Burks, because I have a little construct here. You're going to like this. Okay?
Good.
All right. Burks is still an anointed apostle. Okay. She wrote her book about how great she was, and she still stands by everything she did. And she used the playbook that brought us the opiate addiction. People think, the opioid pandemic, the opioid addiction pandemic. People they believe that this was the Sackler family's doing, which, believe me, they were duplicitous in all of it. They were not the primary mover. They didn't initiate and they didn't perpetrate. They blew wind into the sails of what my profession was doing. The way it happened was we had a pandemic in the 1870s to 1890s. The Harrison Narcotic Act was brought in. When we first developed morphine sulfate and the hypodermic needle, this was the first time in human history that physicians could lessen suffering in humans. This was mind-boggling to humans. It's the first thing you learn when you're in training, like how to take suffering. It's like, oh my God, it's so powerful. But back then, they didn't know the addictive potential. And in the early part of the 20th century, the Harrison Narcotic Act came in, and by estimates I have read, I don't know what's apocryphal and what is not, 20,000 physicians were put in prison for the prescribing of opiates because they were the main mover and perpetrator of that pandemic. Then for the next 60 years, physicians avoided opiates. There was some sort of an opiophobia that came in because of that, of all those reactions from the early part of the 20th century. Now we're into the 1960s, 1970s, and suddenly people are living a lot longer with cancer, and cancer pain is a big problem. And a group of nurses and doctors came in and said, "This is insane. You have opiophobia. We have an answer here with this drug." And they were absolutely spot on. The fact that we were underprescribing opiates, which we are once again doing, by the way, but underprescribing opiates for suffering and misery with cancer was absurd. So that group saw themselves as a savior. Sound familiar? And you literally find quotes from them in the early 80s saying, "We believed we were wearing a white hat. We were going to carry forward and make sure no American ever experienced pain ever, anywhere, ever again." Mm. And they marched state by state and got the insurance commission, the state medical societies, the local county health organizations and mental health organizations, and the VA being one of the early movers, adopted, if you remember this, you may be too young for this, pain is the fifth vital sign. And once pain becomes more important than your pulse and whether you were breathing, doctors once again were being criminally, not malpractice, were being criminally and civilly attacked for under-treating a pain.
I see.
Of course, the attorneys got. So now we have the evangelizing physician going state by state, getting the regulators, and then the legal system falling in line after it. Sound familiar, Deborah Burks?
Yeah.
Exactly what she did. She went governor by governor, and then all the systems within the state took over, and that was that. And that's how it happened. She was the prime mover.
Right. In the video I'm about to show you, they had some clips where she's talking about how, she wants no deaths. She wanted no deaths, no hospitalizations. They were asking her what would be her.
You got to know that is when they came to this zero COVID stuff.
Right.
That was an insanity.
Yeah.
I can't tell you as a practicing physician how insane that was. And when during the darker hours of it, I actually had a news show every night here in Los Angeles. Me and an anchor would do these sort of updates on what's going on. And occasionally we'd have physicians come in and I go, what do you mean? I go, we got to, this is a bad pandemic. It hurts certain people who have certain risk factors. It just is. And we'll do our best to mitigate and we'll figure out ways to treat it. That's what's going to happen. And what I would get back frequently was one death is too many. One death is too many. Well, first of all, then we're not in a pandemic if we don't have one death. And secondly, you're not going to pay attention to any other causes of death other than that. Well, now we're going to have lots of people dying and we're going to have lots of psychiatric problems. And that's what we got.
Well, and you can also see how censorship would easily arise from an environment like that, because if that's really the game you're playing, then of course you can't let anybody chip away at your ideas of how to achieve that. I mean, there's
here in Los Angeles, the county officials came up with this bizarre red, yellow, green code system that was completely out of thin air. It was the same thing as 6 foot distancing. They just invented it. And I looked at it, I said, okay, everybody, we are literally never going to green. Never. And that was the only way they were going to let us out of lockdown. But green was essentially zero COVID. It's like that's an impossibility. It defies. We are biological agents. There's a biological agent afoot here. It's going to come around no matter what we do. But people were absolutely delusional. I blame Francis Collins, who said it out loud, that they didn't contemplate any of the risk reward, which is the opposite of what physicians must do and the opposite of practicing medicine.
Okay, let's watch that video in a second. Before we do that, however, do not forget, everyone, you get one of my favorite products at greenpasture.org, promo code Allison. This is a fermented cod liver oil and butter oil blend. Nice. It was developed the way that Dr. Weston Price, who's a biological dentist turn of the century, suggested, with the fermentation allowing for more bioavailability. It's full of vitamin A, D, K, and also great omegas. It actually helped me quite a bit when I was transitioning from having cavities every 6 months to not having cavities at all. Of course, the dentist had no interest in asking me what I did differently. But anyway, my dad, who is an orthopedic surgeon, was the one who started us on this. And now my kids will take it. I will suggest the cinnamon tingle flavor, but they do have capsules and chocolate flavor. I cannot attest to that. This is what right here, fermented cod liver oil and concentrated butter oil blend, greenpasture.org. If you have dental issues or joint pain, chronic fatigue, it's a great product. It's not a supplement, really. It's a food. And the company is also amazing. They're very pro-free speech, health freedom company. They're always at the Weston Price Wise Traditions Conference every year, one of the main sponsors, and just lovely people, family-owned company, small business, and they've been a supporter of the show for a long time. So go check out greenpasture.org, promo code Allison. Okay, let me show this quick clip here. Again, this is from Good Kid Productions, and this is just a little piece. I highly recommend going and watching this. This is how the deep state really played Trump. It wasn't Fauci. How the deep state really played Trump. Now, I will say, I don't think it wasn't Fauci. I mean, I don't think the guy just was doing nothing. But this does make a case that maybe he was just kind of like the little elf guy. No offense. Look, I'm 5'3". My husband's 5'6". Not trying to make fun of his height. I'm just saying he seemed like the little guy that was taking the fall for the lady in the scarf. Okay, here
Burks. We go. And on February 2020, Dr. Deborah Burks officially joins the White House COVID Task Force.
And I'm grateful that Dr. Deborah Burks will be on our team. And even on her first day, she's already been contributing significantly.
She's the coordinator, meaning she, and she alone, writes its medical advice. Just 1 month earlier, the State Department had released a vast investigation into Burks's management of PEPFAR. It's stuffed full of complaints. People describe her as dictatorial.
Yeah.
They say her decisions are made without clear rationale other than
Yep.
"I told you to."
Yep.
They say she does not listen to feedback and simply issues threats, and that she sets targets that are not reasonable and draw conclusions that lead down the wrong path.
Dr. Burks is a highly respected person I've gotten to know very well over the last 6 days.
Okay, so that didn't surprise you.
Oh, it's perfect. It fits exactly with who she is. And look, we live in an age of irrational certitude. True clinicians, true scientists are always in a state of skepticism and uncertainty. We know we can't perceive the truth per se much of the time. We do our best to ascend to it, but we can't. And so we are always prepared to update our priors, as you would say, with Bayesian reasoning. And these people that were in control of this pandemic did not any of that. It was shocking to me. It was so shocking. And all I could think to myself is, oh, these guys haven't practiced medicine. And I've done it for 40 years. And you develop a keen judgment on risk reward. And they had no risk reward ability to assess at all. And that's how you harm people. Look, when I was teaching medicine, when the residents, I'd always teach them, I go, look, what's your reasoning? Show me the literature. It may not be the right choice, so make sure you have a backup plan. And if you don't have a backup plan, I'm going to kill you. But the worst thing you can say to me, if I ask you why you made a certain choice, because I had to do something, oh my God, those are the worst words a physician can possibly say. That is the opposite of do no harm.
You can go watch Dr. Drew, Ask Dr. Drew, every day, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. You can see my episode. I was just on his show, so that was very fun. Thanks for having me on. Send me some mail, P.O. Box 3355, Denellen, Florida, 34432. I love getting notes of encouragement. People send me seeds for my garden. See, I got them right here.
Nice.
Yes, nothing creepy, nothing edible, because I'm going to assume you're trying to kill me. And my kids do open the packages. Unfortunately, the post office just put someone else's mail in my P.O. box, and I let my kids open it up thinking it was fan mail. But anyway, sorry about that.